Hello, good evening, and welcome. Welcome to everyone around the world and all of our Facebook listeners. I am MrB on Freetalk with MrB. Last week, we started a conversation about giving back, where we spoke about giving back to self and why that's important to give back to ourselves before we give back to others. Today, we're going to continue this conversation, me and what we call my team and our panel, and we'll continue by bringing on a subject matter expert to talk about the value of giving back to self. Sameena?
Yes, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us once again on this episode on Free Talk with MrB and Ms. Dedra Stevenson, who has made time for us in her very busy schedule just before the session tomorrow. Yes, and we wish you a very happy Eid Mubarak, all of
and
our...
Eid Mubarak to you as well, and to everyone around the world.
Yes.
I hope everyone has a great day.
Yes, and as we were talking earlier, giving back is very, very important to our own self in order to help others. Yes, I think during the month of Ramadan, all of us have done that. We have done our best. We have spent the best of our times in prayers, in whatever we could do best for ourselves, and give ourselves that time. And now also our families. Like some of us visited our family. Like I'm going to be back next week, inshallah, back to my schedule. But before that, I should be very, very thankful to God Almighty that He has given me this time to be spent with my family. And this is something I really needed to give myself. Yes.
That's been so great for you. I bet your family really appreciated you being there.
Yes, absolutely. And I've had some very delicious food, of course, being with mom.
I bet you did. Oh my God. Indian food is the best. It's so delicious. So it's so heartburn inducing though. Oh my God. But it's worth it. It's worth it. So I think we have our special guest that's about to join us right now. I'd like to introduce you to my husband, Dr. Hussain Maseeh Kayyani, head clinical psychologist at the Dubai Community Health Center.
Good evening, everybody.
And this is MrB, and this is Sameena. Sameena, you do the PR for a lot of hospitals in the UAE, am I right?
I work for Zuleika Hospital as the brand and corporate communications deputy director.
That's fantastic.
Good to meet you, MrB, Sameena.
A pleasure meeting you too, sir. Thank you for being on the program.
My pleasure.
So we were talking about, people in giving back to themselves, being an essential component of being the best person you can be. So the stronger you are, the better you will be able to give to others. And my husband, spends a lot of time actually helping patients, in private clinic and a number of other organizations. And I think that he would probably be able to give us some insight on that.
Well, first of all, I'm glad to be joining you tonight. From a psychological point of view, we always think of these situations as stress. We look at it from a stress model. Usually, we measure stress on a physical level, emotional, and intellectual or cognitive level. Not all stress are bad. Sometimes we seek stress, like I just finished exercising, so that's a stress on the body. We like it, we seek it. Sometimes we go to like theme parks and seek thrills. That's a stress on your system. So to start with, we say stress is not bad all the time. It becomes bad when we are not asking for it and we don't want it and has no meaning for us. Then we think of that stress as a bad thing. But even with good stress, you have the same kind of physiological reaction. All stress, whether it's physical stress or emotional stress or even mental stress, you will notice that you will have certain physiological reactions, including dilation of the pupils, heart rate goes up, blood pressure goes up, breathing becomes shallow, sweating. It sounds like exercising. I mean, your body's going through, a stress. But even when you have emotional stress, such as being in a traffic, you will have similar physical reaction through being angry, flushed. Sometimes you'll be sweating, even though you're not exerting any kind of physiological stress. But stress in itself, even when it's an emotional stress, creates these physical stress. So a lot of time we say you need to handle stress on these three levels, on physical level, emotional level, and intellectual level. On a physical level, it's always good to do some exercise, do relaxation, yoga, massage, hot baths, all these kind of things that keep your body in a kind of relaxed state. Deep breathing, meditation, these things will help the physiological reaction. But keep in mind that there are other two components that you need to take care of. Without taking care of the other two components, all of that might be helpful temporarily, but it's not going to have a long-term effect. So you might just go through meditation or relaxation or have a massage, but if the mental stress is going on, immediately after you finish your massage session, you're back into the same zone of feeling stressed, you're upset and not happy. So if you keep doing that, that's important because you're targeting the physiological reaction, which is lowering your heart rate, the blood pressure, going to what we call in neurology the parasympathetic nervous system, basically taking the component of your neurology that's under your control. The other one, the physical reaction is under what we call the sympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic, the word's very common, sympathetic. So something happens, your neurology sympathizes and gives you that reaction. That's automatic. You cannot control that. But you can control it with the parasympathetic system, which is the breathing, the relaxation, and all of that. So that's the physical component. We come to the emotional level. Any kind of stress, even happy stress, such as a wedding. A wedding can be very stressful. People who went through weddings or parents who had children go through, wedding, they're happy, but they're very stressed. What makes them happy with this stress is that two things you need to keep in mind to make your emotional stress on a good side: meaning and hopefulness. Any situation that you are in, if you have these two things, that will be a good stress. That will reduce your overall stress, even on an emotional level. You need to seek meaning in anything you do. A work that you're doing, a task you're doing. A lot of you probably, I'm sure, went through college, education, master's degree, doctorate degree. You have a lot of stress, mental stress, emotional stress, but you have a meaning to it. I'm doing this for a meaning. I want to get a degree. I want to help. I want to grow. That makes it worthy. It makes you capable of going through it. But the moment you lose that element of meaningfulness in life, even good situation will become negative stress to you. The other one is hope. Hope basically means control. When you are hopeful, you're saying something will change. And the more, in psychology, we have the focus or locus of control. There are two locuses of control. Basically, where do you put your control? Internally or externally? Internal locus of control and external locus of control. Both of them are okay, but we don't want to lean in one or against the other. It has to be balanced. There are certain things we can control, like I can control making a decision going to a college. But do I get a scholarship? Maybe that's not on my control. So this kind of balance, it has to always, we measure our action on these two levels. When you have that, you have hope. You say there are certain things I can do, and certain things may not be under my control, but I'm hopeful. I'll do whatever I can. Religion, spirituality helps in that matter. In Islam, we say, put all your hope in God, but do whatever you can. In Arabic saying, "Aqilha wa tawakkal ala Allah," meaning in Arabic saying, tie the camel, then rely on God. But you have to tie the camel first. You cannot leave the camel. All right?
Right. You have to do something.
You have to do something. So tie the camel, then put your faith in God and move and leave the camel. So when you have those two elements of meaningfulness and hope, which is internal control that you can have on the external world, that will help you on an emotional level. Now, the third component, which is the most important one, which most often we ignore and we are unaware of, is the mental factor of stress. A lot of times we are unaware of the kind of dialogue we have to ourselves, what we say to ourselves on a very subconscious level. I'm not good at this. People don't like me. I'm not impressing anybody. I'm not going to be succeeding. A lot of negative words and comments that brings you down. The more you are aware of these kind of internal dialogue and change it to more of, a good friend. A good friend would never say, you're no good. Oh, no, a good friend would say, you can do it. Just, have faith. Trust in yourself.
Exactly.
Do a better job. So be a good friend internally with yourself. Once you manage that, you can be able to control the mental stress or the mental element of stress. A lot of times, individuals, clients usually ask, how can you sit for hours and hours and hours listening to people's problems and not affect you? Well, it's not a trick. It does affect us. Psychologists get affected. They are human after all.
Right.
But how they receive these kind of energy from other people and have internal dialogue with themselves, that's what protects them. We do not take in other people's problem and say it's our problem, or I cannot do anything with that, or life sucks. Look at what people are doing. In mental stress or mental internal dialogue, there are three things you need to be aware of. They call it the cognitive triad. Your thoughts about yourself, your thoughts about people, and your thoughts about future. Any thought, I don't want to say I will challenge you, but think of it by yourself. Any thought has to be about one of those three. If I say, I'm thirsty, it's about me. Tomorrow I'm going to work, it's about the future. I have good friends, it's about other people and myself. Sometimes any statement or any thoughts, it could be about one of those three, or it could be a combination of those three, okay? The beautiful thing is that we know that one element of those three can lead to certain disorders. For example, bad self thoughts lead to depression.
Yeah.
When you say bad things about yourself, bad ideas about yourself, bad comments, I'm no good, nobody loves me, it usually leads to depression. Bad thoughts about the future is anxiety. I'm not going to be able to do it. This is hard. I'm not going to be able to do the presentation tomorrow. It's a bad future. So that leads to anxiety. If I leave the house, I'm going to get lost. So it's a bad futuristic, even if it's after 1 hour or 2 minutes, but it's about the future. Negative future thoughts lead to anxiety. People, the element of people, the third part of the cognitive triad, leads to bad relationships with people. It could lead to personality disorder. It could lead to, bad relationship with people, with a husband, with a wife, with friends, with colleagues. When you say people cannot be trusted, people are against me, people don't like me. So that creates a lot of barriers between you and your other people.
Yeah.
So be careful of your cognitive triad about self, others, and future. Have meaning and hope as an emotional element. Treat your body. Exercise, sleep well, eat well, avoid smoking, any kind of drugs or bad substances. Have a lot of rest. Yoga.
That's part of being the good friend, right? Yeah. Taking
when
care
you do these things
of your friend.
It doesn't mean life will stop having stress. All what it means, you are better prepared to deal with the stress.
Yeah, and to help others, which is a lot of what we discuss on this podcast.
Well, you need to take care of yourself before taking care of others.
Absolutely. Exactly. And this is a good segue because I know Sameena has some questions, and we also want to welcome to the program Professor Mehreen. Sameena?
Thank you so much.
Hi, Professor Mehreen. How are you doing? I hope everything is good with you and back in South Africa.
Assalamu alaikum, and yes, hello. We're healing slowly but surely, a day at a time.
Okay, that's great. Our prayers for everyone continue to be with you. Inshallah, everything should be better soon. Just as you joined us, we saw, just to introduce you to Dr. Hussain, who is medical director and a clinical psychologist at the Dubai Community Health Center, and husband of our very great friend, Miss Dedra Stevenson. She's been very, very kind to have him join us today. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. And it's always a pleasure. And it was so interesting for us to keep listening to what you just told us all these last few minutes. And I was really engrossed in these things, and I was applying it to myself. As am I really giving myself the meaning, the hope, and the purpose of what I'm doing on an everyday basis? Yes, Ms. Dedra, if you could just talk a little bit about how Dr. Hussain has really implied a lot of his skills and his experience in his normal life as well. Tell us about it. Tell us about how he is as a person in terms of giving back to the family.
About me? about me tell you about him?
Should I leave?
No, don't leave. No, you should hear this. Actually, he's
that little element of fun there. Yeah.
Well, this is going to sound like, I'm very prejudiced, hearing this, obviously, because I'm actually his biggest fan. He does so much for so many people, just countless, patients at his practice. And he's done a lot for vulnerable groups in the UAE, the orphans, elderly, disabled people. It's just the outpouring, even of gratitude, for the kind of help he's extended to people is just, it's overwhelming. Sometimes I'm just so full of pride, to watch what he does, all over the country and beyond. I'm very proud of my husband. He does really well. And I worry though about the stress that it takes on him sometimes. And I think I'm oftentimes the voice that's saying, you need to take a minute, to kind of take a beat, let's go see a movie, or, maybe you should exercise today, because he does sort of go into times where he forgets to exercise for a long time, and that's bad for him, and I do worry about his health and, the kind of stress that takes on his body. And because that's what your partner is there for.
And that leads into our point, because we're saying, and as the doctor himself is saying, before we can care for others, we need to care for himself. So he appreciates you caring for yourself, but it's really helpful when you watch out for his health, watch out for his well-being, because he's emptying himself so often by giving to others. So you want to shore him back up, feed him, cherish him, lift him up.
To make him feel valued.
Right.
That's an interesting point. If you allow me just to elaborate on one point here. a lot of time people might withhold sharing things with other people because they feel either there's too much for them to bear or it's going to affect them, because they don't trust how the other person is going to manage the stress that I might pour on them. So whenever you're taking care of yourself, you create that element of trust. People will trust you, that they can communicate with you and talk to you and seek you out. But if they see you tired, emotionally distraught, or not with it, they're not going to seek you out. They're not going to feel that they can trust you with their burden to put it on you.
Exactly.
So it is important that when you're taking care of yourself, you're actually helping the other person be more free to seek you out.
Yeah, that's what I said last week. Remember, I said that when you take, even moms, when you're stressed out with children and family, when you take time to go get your nails done or go to the gym and exercise, or read a book or something, you are not being selfish at all. It's amazing that, like first care workers, like ambulance, rescue workers, always are encouraged to take time off from such a stressful, busy, life. I mean, and the fact that they're saving lives constantly all the time in their job. But moms are often not encouraged to take time to take care of themselves, even though they're constantly on duty too. And saving lives by not letting your kid fall off the stairs, or not letting them get hurt, not letting them bump their heads or scratch themselves, or or take poison in the kitchen. I mean, you're just like this constant rescue worker all the time. So whenever possible, it's very important to take a hot bath or read a book or do something to kind of replenish that energy, because then, like he said, I mean, if I need to be there for my husband or my kids, they won't see me as broken glass, because nobody can lean on broken glass.
Right. Right.
Yeah, they need to see a rock, somebody strong.
Yeah. Let's see, Professor Mehreen, you had any points or questions you want to bring up?
Well, I just wanted to obviously say, yay, I'm so glad to see you again, Dedra. I missed you.
Missed you
thank
too.
Thank you so much to your husband for being here. Of course, it's absolutely insightful. And I have to agree tenfold with everything he's just said, because I use it in what I do, especially what he said regarding the mental capacity and the control effect, because I know one of the things I try and teach as much as possible is for people to understand, let's try to focus more on what we can control, which is me. I can control me. I can control my actions. I can control my mind. I can control my reactions. I cannot control other people. And the problem we have, and I found this, and I'm sure he really agrees, people nowadays focus so much on the outside and what they cannot control, and that influences their mentality to a maximum. So that stresses them out totally. So I totally agree with everything he said. And I love the fact that he mentioned the importance of having meaning and giving purpose to what we do. Because when you find your purpose, like Mr. B has found his purpose, and we all together, because his purpose is now vision. It makes things so much greater, to do more. You want to do more. It's self-motivational. So I love every bit, and that self-talk, that's a whole different episode altogether. Self-talk is like massive. It's a massive.
Yeah, we could do a whole episode just on that.
Really love you.
And Sameena, you had a couple questions. I think you captured one. You had another.
Yes. Actually, listening to Dr. Hussain, I can understand and imagine what he goes through on a daily basis. And hats off to him that he has such a beautiful family, mashallah, and also himself, maintaining himself, taking care of himself, because he needs to be ready for his patients and his clients every single day. So I see that I read through his profile, and I see that he has extensive experience in family therapy, in interpersonal psychotherapy, as well as existential therapy, psychotherapy. These words actually caught my attention, and I would like Dr. Hussain to emphasize a little bit about how he actually assures his clients or his patients who come to him only with problems, and how he helps them realize their self potential. And he could talk about and tell us about any one instance or any one client, without mentioning the name and details, of course, that how he could help them realize their potential and give back to themselves and help them heal?
Well, I come from a very much humanistic approach to psychotherapy, but also mixed with psychodynamic and family system, which is in a way it's what they call interpersonal psychotherapy. We believe in the human potential to direct the self, but you need to, move away layers and layers of socialization, traumas, self-doubt, pressure, fears, anxieties, self-doubts, and you do that through just listening to them and correcting certain thought process that they might have, that internal dialogue that they might have, and what they've been socialized to how to talk to themselves, how they feel or believe that people perceive them. And when you clear all this mess, in a sense, by listening to them, they start realizing what they really need to do. And a lot of times, I really don't have to tell them what to do. They know what they need to do. It just takes time to, clear up all this mess that's been piling up over years and years and years. Some people are very quick to do that because they have the motivation, or the life stress is very pressing them and they need to get out of certain situation. Some people are just stuck for different reasons. And for those people, it just might take a little bit longer, but you need to give them more trust in themselves, that they will find their way out. Once you give a human being the trust that you can trust yourself, you will find your way out of this thing. And psychologists are basically, I usually call them navigators. We're just sitting next to the driver. Turn right. There's a turn coming very slow. There's a bumpy road coming ahead. You need to slow. You need to turn on the lights. These kind of directions are not advices. They're basically guidance. Forewarnings. Speed up, slow down. And once they have somebody who can do that for them, they will feel more trusting of themselves and driving their life. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, absolutely. I just want to ask that, there are certain individuals, we really want to help them, and we really mean that we positively want them to come out of the grief and the stress and the self-negative affirmations which they have been making for themselves. But somehow they don't seem to see that, we are really interested to bring them out of that negativity. So, how do we manage to it could be in our own families, it could be on our office, it could be among our friends, because I do try to help some individuals, but then I see for long they've been in that negative affirmation that, nobody likes me, like you just told us in the beginning, nobody likes me, I can't do this, my life is like this. Those negative affirmations are in their mind, and I just want to help them realize that no, it's not that. You need to see beyond that. What is your tip for us to help such people?
Well, 2 points. One thing I do want to kind of keep in mind that certain people are emotionally stuck, meaning that, or from a Freudian perspective, they are in a complex. Basically, as we physically grow, I'm 1 feet tall, then I become, 1 feet.
That's a baby.
That's a baby. I become 5 feet. I'll go bigger. I become an adult. Physical development. There's also emotional development. There's intellectual development. There's moral development. Some people are just stuck in one of those elements, one of those trajectories in the development. They're stuck, and sometimes people with trauma in their early life, they're stuck in the emotional path. They might be adults, 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, or even older, but they are emotionally like a teenager. Very resistant,
repressed,
very aggressive in their emotions toward others and to themselves, refusing advice. I mean, think of any adolescent, a teenager. No matter what advice you give them, they just throw it back in your face without any thank you. Some adults are like that, especially in therapy. We face them. You need a lot of patience with these people. You need to make them grow. And how people grow is through mistakes. Mistakes are not bad thing.
Yeah.
We always try to make, I'm at fault at this as a parent. We want to help our children avoid making mistakes, but they do. We made mistakes. They will make mistakes. We just need to, keep our hands on our heart that they will survive the mistakes.
Yes.
But sometimes with clients, we have to allow them to make mistakes. Sometimes I tell my client, go make a mistake. Well, I mean, not a big mistake, just something to experience.
Not a lethal one.
Something to experience that, mistakes happen and they're okay.
Yeah.
And through that mistakes, you face some of the challenges about yourself and the world. You start correcting certain thoughts, certain belief systems, certain behaviors. And the more you have of these, the better you become. I mean, think of any skill you have, emotional skill, social skill, intellectual skills. You build it through trial and error. You made mistakes until you handled that skill. You did not ride a bicycle from the first time. You had to fall several times before you ride the bicycle very well. So any skill, you have to make mistakes and trial and error until you become professional in it. So emotional pathways in our life also sometimes takes some mistakes, So that's one aspect I want you to think about. The other one is that trauma has a lot of effects on people. We're not talking about trauma in a sense of only severe trauma such as, death or rape or child abuse or things like that. Even some simple situation might have a tremendous effect on a child. Divorce of parents. Okay, it might be a good thing, but sometimes how the divorce happens can have a lot of trauma on the child. A lot of us have these kind of elements of trauma in our life that we need to bring it out. We need to face it. We need to be feel confident that we can handle that stress or that trauma. If that trauma remains, we're basically stuck in that stage of life, not only emotionally, but even intellectually and even sometimes morally. We're stuck in that stage of life that the trauma happens. And that requires a lot of trauma work to get people unstuck through that.
So this is a lot of very, very good points, and we have covered it well over our allotted period of time. Mr. B's take is, many might say, easier said than done. We always hear this phrase. And so the art of giving back that talks about supporting each other, helping each other, giving back to the global community. Today we have covered giving back to self before we can give back to others. And it was well articulated about how we're going to strengthen ourselves before we can strengthen others. So although we say easier said than done, I think we have covered quite a few subjects that says, do things that help strengthen you, whether it's smiling at yourself in the mirror, whether it's recognizing that we ourselves are indeed positioned to give back, and areas that makes us improve ourselves before we give back to others. So we look forward to these and more subjects. And one of the subjects that's coming up starting off over the next 2 weeks was something that was mentioned here. And I think, Dedra, you remember, you remember us saying it even? And your husband mentioned it.
Oh yeah, gosh. Oh, remind me. I'm sorry, I forgot. we've been through such a whirlwind in only half an hour.
Right. And that's the point. It was a point of giving back hope, and why hope strengthens.
Hope. Yes,
and we will talk about it next week. So we've been covering these subjects. And we are concerned about the individual. So we want to talk about that one subject next week and week after. So we can encourage each other by giving back that hope, that self-sufficient, that self-nourishing flavor of hope that helps us to give to others. So we thank you all so much for being on here. Dedra, we really
Thank
especially
you.
appreciate you for bringing your husband on, and you're busy. The hair looks great. Let's see the nails. The nails.
Oh, the nails.
Oh, they're
Yeah.
looking great.
See, I literally was getting them done as we were talking. Yeah,
and Professor
tomorrow.
And
Happy,
Professor,
by the way.
Professor Mia, thank you so much for being on. Again, and everyone, Sameena, thank you so much, because everyone have busy lives and we take the time to give back to ourselves, our families, and to the greater community. Right here on Free Talk with Mr. B.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.